We are Movie Men, and we are back with Callum's nomination for There Will Be Blood. We've got Justin, Chase, Callum, myself, obviously, and Callum's going to kick us off with the case he's making for the perfection of this movie. Take it away, Callum.
Gentlemen, about a couple months ago, I was sitting while my wife was at work in the living room. After I got all my kids down to sleep, I made myself a nice big plate of nachos, and the only other question I had on my mind is what movie am I going to throw on? And I happened to stumble across There Will Be Blood. This was my first time watching it just a few months ago, and I cannot believe that this is my first time watching There Will Be Blood. I read a little bit of the description. I saw Daniel Day-Lewis was the actor, and I thought, well, there's a little check mark by the movie already. But I read the description, and I was like, it's a bit like an oil tycoon. How interesting can that be? You know, how thrilling can that be? And I thought, you know what, I'll give it a little bit of time. So I turn it on, start munching on my nachos, and the movie begins with Daniel. The first like 15-20 minutes of the movie, there's like hardly any dialogue. There's not like a typical hook that some movies might have, but it was a hook. The fact that it was just this desperate man in a well looking for gold, going through all the processes to try and with his pickaxe, and you see the sparks flying, and you see a little bit, he spits on it, he's rubbing it, and he's thinking, is this it? And then he goes up, gets his dynamite, things go wrong, he falls down, breaks his leg. Anyway, this is just the beginning, and he finds his gold, and this ruthless, savage man is able to build a tycoon with starting off with this gold and then getting into the oil empire. And let me tell you, like, as I say, there's no cheap thrills with this movie. There's no like, what can we do to make people interested? It is like, no, this is an artistic masterpiece, and you will sit down and you will respect my art and you will enjoy the seminar displayed by Daniel Day-Lewis. But then not only that, Daniel Day-Lewis isn't the crutch of this movie. I feel as though this movie had a variety of great actors. I even thought that the child actor in this movie done a great job, and I'm really harsh on child actors. So that's my initial case to you guys, is just remember, there's no cheap thrills. There's no like an automatic, you must be interested in this topic. It's about oil, for goodness sake. But there is themes of greed, there's themes of capitalism, religion, there's themes of envy, and there is something that everyone can relate to while watching this movie. And I present it to you guys as a perfect movie. The second time I watched it recently in preparation for this, I enjoyed it even more. And that is my submission to you. I await to hear your pros, any of your cons, and I am willing to go to bat for this movie.
I'll start this thing off. Callum, I'm with you. I saw this movie in 2009. Was the first time I saw this movie. And I've seen it, I think I mentioned, I've seen it at least half a dozen times, maybe 8 or 10. And this movie hits. It slaps. So first off, it's based off of a novel by Upton Sinclair called Oil. So Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle, which is what got, I think, Teddy Roosevelt to change like meat processing plants. It was Teddy Roosevelt, or maybe it was FDR. One of those early 1900 presidents with The Jungle. But he wrote this book called Oil, which was kind of the same thing. It was an expose on how terrible the oil industry was. And this movie is, the first half of this movie is based on that book. And then he kind of takes it and Paul Thomas Anderson takes it kind of a little bit different direction. But there are so many freaking good nuggets in this movie. Some of the pros: Daniel Day-Lewis, him playing this character was spectacular. He had, I think, a year or two to prepare for the role, and he prepared for the role. He was all in. Now, on the other hand, Paul Dano, the pastor, right? You notice he played both twins, and he was originally only offered the first brother's role, and so he had like a 5-minute scene where he comes in and he goes, "Hey, there's oil, right? All this stuff," and he kind of does that. But they were so impressed with how he did that they're like, "Hey, we want you to be the other brother too." And so he was able to be the other brother, and so he had no preparation to develop a character and how to act that part, and he knocked it out of the park as well with that kind of fantastic evangelical, right, like hyper religious evangelism that was kind of going on late 1800s, early 1900s. So just seeing the performance delivered by the two main actors, and then all the supporting actors, right? So his son, his fake brother, who's Benny from The Mummy, right? It's the same actor. I remember the first time I was like, that looks like Benny, but older. Right? Like you could tell it's been 20 years since The Mummy or however long it had been. He did a really, really good job. And man, you just like seeing Daniel Day-Lewis turn to hate everybody was a fascinating spectacle in the movie. I think that's what I love most, is you just see him turn to hating everyone, including his adopted son. There's a the only other nugget that I wanted to throw out is that his little monologue at the end where he goes, "I have a milkshake and you have a milkshake and I have a straw." That is from a Senate hearing in the 1930s. There was an oil tycoon explaining what drainage was, and he used that analogy. And so Daniel Day-Lewis, in preparation, kind of took it and made it his own. But that was an actual analogy that was used in a congressional hearing on explaining what drainage was. And I drink your milkshake, right? It's anyways, such a great movie. I love it. I would say the downsides, the critiques that I have with this movie, kind of as you mentioned, it's kind of an artsy film. You kind of have to just sit down, shut up, and watch the movie, and know that the movie is going to tell a complete whole story, showcasing this man's journey from being a prospector, right? And he was mining for silver in New Mexico, to being one of the most powerful oil tycoons who hated everybody, and the power and influence that he had. And so, right, I would say this movie is not for the faint of heart. When you sit down, you go, this is 2.5 hours or give or take. And it's like, you got to sit down and just watch the movie, and it's going to be painful. It's going to make you feel itchy with like that kind of dry, hot feel. That's my perception every time I watch it. I always get that kind of itchiness that comes with like being a little too hot. And you have to be uncomfortable with like even the clicking sounds that's in the soundtrack of, right, the oil pump or whatever. And it's like, it if you have sensory problems or you don't have like a good mental fortitude to just sit down and watch a movie, it's going to be a really bad time. But if you can sit down and appreciate like what true art looks like through a cinematic lens, oh, you're going to have the best time. So that's kind of some of my jumping off thoughts. As people talk, I might think of other things, pros or cons, to discuss.
Dang, Chase, that was a good analysis, man. when I first watched this movie. Oh, by the way, Chase, next time you and I get in an argument, I'm holding this one in my back pocket. I'm gonna call you a bastard in a basket. Next time we get in an argument, I just think that's such a phenomenal insult. So that dialogue, dude, you're right at the end. I mean, well, both dialogues. You know, this dialogue with his son, and then the dialogue with the pastor dude is like, I want you to say you're a false prophet. It's just so good, man. Oh, all of it. Dude, the first time I watched this movie, you guys know me, I like to raw dog movies. I had heard the name of the movie and Daniel Day-Lewis. One guy on a podcast I listened to said it was his favorite movie, and I like stopped. I'm like, I want to hear anything about it. I'm gonna go watch it because I respect this guy's opinion, but I want to go in just with no expectations, and I want to just receive the story. The title, There Will Be Blood, I thought it was gonna be like a revenge movie, man. I thought somebody's gonna kill his family, and he's gonna go on like this, you know, like revenge tour and kill everybody. Sorry, Justin, if you were going to say this, but I'll give you credit in our text message today. Justin made the good point. He's like, the movie There Will Be Blood, there wasn't much blood. I'm just saying that's true. Like it really subverted my expectation, and I would say for the worse. I was pretty bored the first time I watched the movie because I wasn't expecting what Chase just described. You got to sit down, shut up, and take the artistic lens of cinema into account. But as I ruminated on the movie afterwards, and then I watched YouTube videos and listened to commentators, and I started to appreciate what this movie actually, like the message and what this movie meant in the world of cinema as a whole. I grew more respect, and I'm like, I got to rewatch it. And so when Callum nominated it, I'm like, perfect. I've been meaning to rewatch this movie, and it is so much better the second time. And Chase, you said it's so much better the third and fourth time. Like, I will be rewatching this movie. It's so good. Daniel Day-Lewis to me is there's a few actors that I can just watch do anything. I could watch them read a dictionary and just be completely entertained. They're so captivating. Daniel Day-Lewis, obviously, because he's a method actor, he just embodies whatever character he portrays so well. Like in this movie in particular, the way that he talks, the way that he's always perspirating, he's always a little bit drunk, his teeth are a little bit yellowed, and his lips are always just a little bit pursed, and he's just, I don't know, man. There's just something about the 19th century man that just kind of, I don't know. It's fun to watch, and the fact that he embodies it so well. It's just, you know, Denzel Washington is that way for me. Like I could watch Denzel Washington, and he's so fun to watch. Leonardo DiCaprio in like his later movies, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I just like seeing him on the screen. It's so fun to watch. Tom Hardy. Except for the Venom movies. I love watching Tom. So Daniel Day-Lewis is like he's one of those just captivating actors. And I think I read on IMDb that he's in every scene in this movie except like 2, which is incredible. Like the guy just carries the movie, man. It's so good. And his acting, his accent, his embodiment of the 19th century man, his the way that he silently portrays like the evil, rambunctious capitalistic drive that eventually ruins him. Like all the subtle, like Chase was talking about, the subtle layered messaging, and Callum, you mentioned as well, the religion, the capitalism, the ambition, the leaving a wake of bodies in your path to get to the next, level up of riches or whatever. Cutting ties, ruining relationships with otherwise good partners. Like there's just so many themes and so many good nuggets out of this movie. To be more precise, I would say I think aside from Daniel Day-Lewis, the part that impressed me most about this movie was that oil fire. That looked so practical. It didn't look CG at all. And I'm like, what do you go to Texas and say, hey, is there an oil rig nobody cares about that we can just ignite? Like how did they film that? That was like masterful filmmaking. And obviously all the action going on, the kid losing his hearing and Daniel going back and he's being covered in oil and trying to like stop this thing, and then the cinema, man, the pure beautiful cinema of just the nighttime, like after the sunset and the fire is still raging, and so now you see like silhouettes with blazing orange and then like these men just trying to handle this out of control problem. Meanwhile the kid is like, I can't hear my voice, I can't hear my Fallon, you're right, dude. That kid actor is so good, and I'm sure you guys read this as well. But he was just, he's not an actor. His mom was going in for like a speeding ticket or something, and somehow casting director. Oh, no, the casting director was going in for a speeding ticket to pay a speeding ticket, and then the person she was paying had their kid there, and he's like, he's a good look, and he like pitched him the movie, and so this kid had zero acting experience, and I thought he did phenomenal. He's such a good actor, especially playing against Daniel Day-Lewis. Like that's a tall ask, and to take a risk on a random kid, I mean, come on. Anyway, so I love the movie. Yeah, it was a and the movie, it's slow, but it gives you a little some every now and then, like his brother showing up, and then what was the line where he's like, get him liquored up before the peach dance or whatever, and his brother like didn't respond. He's like, I said get him liquored up before the peach whatever, and at first I was like, what is he getting at here? What did he want a response? What is he angry because he's not like giving him a courtesy laugh? But then he asks him about the mill next to the house or whatever, and I'm like, oh, he's not his brother. Like stuff like that. It's not a crucial component to the story, but it's enough to make it gripping. And then there's the murder, and so it's like it's enough to like whet your appetite when you're feeling like it's a little bit slow, it's a little bit boring, you're starting to get out of it. Then like they throw in like these cool little side quests that just they add to the story. Like it adds to. Oh, I love that line where he's like, "There's a competition in me." He's like, I don't want anybody else to succeed. Like so many good lines, man. And the way he's
delivered to you.
Right. Yeah. And at the end, again, this is the last thing I'll say, but at the end, I love, again, Daniel Day-Lewis. He's just chewing this piece of steak. Like he's talking with his mouth full. I had to wonder, I'm like, how many takes did they have to do with it? Like how much steak did Daniel Day-Lewis eat filming this scene? Because they did multiple takes, and he's just munching the steak as he's like doing his thing, and like being like thrown into the throes of misery the way that he portrayed it. I thought it was beautiful. It was a master class in acting. It was a beautiful movie. The cinematography, the story. Yeah, I loved it. What did you think, Justin?
This is a movie without a protagonist. And you don't realize that at first. Like, nobody's good. And maybe this is like the cusp of the gritty, grim, dark. But at the end, I will give it credit that it makes you feel ick, and it did its job. But the more I ruminate on this movie, I have to say, it is a discombobulated mess to me. The first act, the 20 minutes, I definitely could tell. I'm like, oh, they're not speaking on purpose. And you're not supposed to know exactly what was going on, but then they leave so much stuff. They just kind of jump in time without any exposition. And I mean, it is one of those things where we call it show don't tell. But to me, they didn't tell at all. And so all the showing leaves your brain like, wait, what about all the stuff that I just cared about, that you just led up to? And they actually don't go back on it. And so to me, I was always looking for a payoff or a switch or a twist or something like, hey, Eli, come here. I know you're Paul. And then there's this dynamic for the rest of the movie. There was none of that. And maybe my expectations of my brain trying to fill in the gaps made this movie so much better in my brain that never paid off at the end. And I go, one douche is yelling at another douche, and at the last 2 seconds of the movie, there will finally be blood. And it's finally over. I'm finished. That's what he says, right? I'm finished here, or something like that. Oh my gosh. And I'll just put another thing on this. The music in this movie, I hated, because what you're seeing on screen, and they did it on purpose, the artsy, but whatever you're seeing on screen, the music is like opposite or like tangential to what you're actually seeing. And it's to make you feel extra uncomfortable for no reason than to be artsy fartsy to me. So that's where I'll start this conversation.
Can I just add to that before Callum gives his rebuttal? Because I forgot to give my cons and you reminded me of a couple, Justin. I hated the soundtrack to this movie as well. I thought it was way too jazzy, artsy. Like if they would have had something like, you know, a Hans Zimmer for Low Hanging Fruit, you know, something like, you know, or The Last Samurai, for example. Like the Last Samurai is a phenomenal movie, but the music elevates it. It takes it from a 9.5 to a 10. Like there is a component that music brings to a movie that elevates it. And I actually thought about that too, Justin, as I was walking. I was like, what is this sounds? Like, what are these sounds? This isn't like, actually the first word I said it would have been better. What is this sounds? Because it didn't make sense. That's how I felt. I was like, what is this sounds? It's not music. It's kind of like strings, but not, and kind of clanky. And again, maybe it's thing. Obviously it was purposeful. But then also the end, I hated the end. Like Justin said, there was no resolution. There was no payoff. It kind of like, there was no wrap up. It just like, he kills and it was almost like you start a story with this guy, you go on this entire journey, and then you see his downfall. And again, maybe this is just me leaning into the hero's journey or popcorn flick or whatever, but I was like, there's got to be a redemption, or maybe he dies and his son forgives him. There has to be something to resolve this, but it felt like the movie just like literally a cliffhanger. Like you just fall off a cliff and the movie's over. Like the credits scroll, and I was just like, what then? Like what? Okay, so don't be evil. Don't chase money at the expense of family. Don't, like, there are lessons to be learned here, but at what cost? And I'm okay with there not being a protagonist, whatever Justin said.
Protagonist.
Yeah. I'm okay with there not being a protagonist, because my favorite TV show of all time is Breaking Bad. And my biggest takeaway for Breaking Bad was, I remember when season 5 ended, I was like, that show is so good, but I was literally not rooting for anybody. Everybody's a bad guy in that show. And so, but it had a resolution. It had a good end. It had, like, you know, there was a nice little bow wrapped up at the end. And I was like, woo, what a good show. There Will Be Blood, I feel like, didn't have a resolution, didn't have an end. There are lessons that you can extract from the movie, but the end was just like so abrupt and just non-conclusive, in my opinion. And then one final thing, and then I'll shut up. I'd like to hear your guys' opinion on his relationship with his son, because obviously that final monologue was super cruel and nasty and everybody hated it and everything. But remember when he's walking down his hallway and he has the flashback? Now, I thought when I saw that the flashback was him like pain, like there was pain inside of him being like, what have I done? Like I ruined my relationship with my son. But then I've heard other commentators on this movie say, no, he wasn't regretting like fostering that relationship, because even in his flashback, you see him walk away from his son and go back to the oil rig. So it was almost emblematic that has always been his priority. But I listened to that and I was like, the dude has to work. That's like saying a dad that goes to work in the morning is neglecting his family. Like he still has to work. So I didn't see that as him like snuffing out the relationship with his son when he was a little boy. I actually thought that was him being remorseful and regretful. So I'd like to hear your guys' opinions on that. But yeah, I had some of the same qualms that Justin did.
And just to put a finer point, as Bo says, this is watching Ebenezer Scrooge get started. This is how a miser gets started. This is how a tycoon gets started. So I get the message of the movie. I'm not oblivious to that, but like there needs to be more. We needed to see more ruthlessness as he progressed down this spiral. It was just more like one scene, he cares about his son. The next, like, he abandons him, but you don't see any remorse at first. And then like him changing, he's just like, he changes from like 2-year clips. And the other thing that bothered me, sorry, one real nitpick, is that Daniel Day-Lewis got older and more craggly, but the young preacher Paul, same age the whole time. And that character really took the movie out of it for me. I know it acted well in the scenes, but him character as a whole, because they didn't explain that he was a twin until the very, very end. And I'm just waiting for this connection. And then when the connection happens and he just bludgeons him to death, there was really no payoff. There was no like, oh, I'm sad to see, like, okay, one bad guy, false prophet was killed by another false tycoon, you know? There you go. There's your work cut out for you, Callum.
So I want to hit, I think, probably the most important point, and this is one of the reasons why I chose this movie, is I thought that it would maybe bring up this conversation, is the ending and how it all wraps up in a nice little bow. I said at the beginning that this movie doesn't rely on any typical thing that a movie might say, well, at least if we have this in it, then people will like this. Everyone loves this, you know, everyone loves this part. Everyone loves an amazing fight scene, or everybody loves the big I'm thinking about like Marvel movies and all of that, or else even our last movie that we've done, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Everyone loves the whole interverse. What's the word? Interverse, universe, multiverse. Everyone loves the, like, it seems as though some movies, and it's fine when it happens, you know, absolutely fine, and but towards the end, Marvel done it too much, where they kind of just relied on, we'll get these actors, we'll get this scene, and we'll get this thing, and put it all through AI almost, and then here comes a movie that should make us millions. This movie didn't rely on anything like that. It didn't even rely on, let's make everyone feel nice and happy when they walk out the movies. It was like, no, this man is a savage. He has went through, and this is why I highlighted the start. It was Quentin Tarantino was talking about this movie, and he made a point where he said at the start of the movie, he goes through, he gets what he's been looking for, but then he goes through the horrible trial of falling and breaking his leg, and the leg snaps, and I think they've done a really good job at the sounds there. You know, like you kind of felt it when I saw it. I like touched my leg. I was like, oh, it takes you back. He then, through his pure grit, gets up to the top. He's laying down, and then you see him just dragging himself, and then it zooms out, and there's just nothing. There's just nothing there.
And then it transitions to he's in town with no explanation if he got rescued, if he did it himself. He's just sitting there counting his money. You don't see his struggle. It just goes to the next scene without character development.
This is deliberate. This is deliberate. After that, you think to yourself, what kind of man is this? What kind of stuff did he have to go through? Did he drag himself all the way there? Did he drag himself down this rocky, deserted road until he got to the next town? How long did that take? How long did he go without water?
It's implied intelligence. It's like we have to fill in that gap, and what Callum said, like, yeah, it is character building in that. What did that guy have to go through? We didn't have to see it. We knew. I like that, Callum.
And this is a horse. Like, maybe he just needed to get out and get to his horse.
But that would still probably kill a weaker man. You know what I mean? Like breaking your leg, getting himself out of the well. You know, like that. That alone is incredible. So what kind of man do we have here? And this is something that I love about this movie is you're a part of it as an audience member. I love a movie that says another cast member of this movie is you sitting on the couch. You are part of this. And in order for this movie to be great, you need to be great. The audience is a member of it. So and it's because of the implied intelligence. So what type of man is able to do this? The same type of this. The only type of man that would survive that situation is the type of man that is so savage and so ruthless that he would create himself an empire, that he doesn't care who has to die to get there. He doesn't care how many people he needs to take advantage of to get there. And the same man who's so stubborn, who's so unwilling to give in to anyone else's desires or anyone else's ideas, even because his son was like, hey, I've got this idea, I want to do this, and maybe we can work together. And his dad was like, the adopted father is like, no, because it's not my idea, it's not my way, I want to have control, I've got my plan for you and you will do what my plan is. And then when his son said no, then it's well, if you are not with me, then you are against me, you are my enemy, I am working against you, I want to see you fail. So the same man that is able, that was in our minds, is like, how is he able to do that? The only possible ending, the only reasonable ending to that movie for that man was for him to end the way it ends, which is no resolution, this is what greed gets you. This is what and see when he's dealing with the other oil tycoons, and they're in the restaurant together, and he's sitting there with his son, and he's just listening to their conversation, and he's shouting to the way, I believe that we were here first. It's complete envy. It's complete, I am my own man. I am going to make it. I'm going to make you fall. I'm going to make you fail. The lesson, obviously, you guys have already highlighted the lesson behind it, but the implied intelligence as the audience member all the way through, from the very start to the very end, is, well, where does this get you? What has he become? And I think, see the end where he's fighting with the preacher. Where is he fighting with the preacher? In his home, in the bowling alley. Who is he playing bowling with? Who is he doing bowling with? What kind of house has he got? He's got this massive house, this huge bowling alley, but there's nobody there to enjoy it with him. There is no one there. And I think that was another artistic twist to it, is that a place that should be full of friends and family to come over and enjoy in your success, enjoy in your wealth, is a place where he sealed his wealth with the blood of one of his enemies. And then just to shout, it is, I'm finished, up to his waiter. I thought that was beautiful. I thought it was excellent. So that's my rebuttal. I think that if this movie did end any other way, it would have diminished the character of Daniel Plainview. It would have diminished his character.
So yeah, Callum, I was gonna say, I think, right, I have 2 points. One is on the character of him. From the start, everything was stacked against him. He broke his leg in the well, and then right, he made enough money that he could hire a crew. And then while he's working with that crew, and he's like sharpening his skills as a surveyor and an oil man, right? One of the guys dies, and then he adopts the son. And then, right, and then he goes and he there's that first like town council meeting, and everybody's kind of complaining, and he goes, "Okay, I'm out. Like I'm just walking away." They're like, "No, come back." He goes, "Your community is so fractured. Like I can't do this." And then he starts in the new town, and just everything's always stacked against him, everything working against him. Right, they had the problem with the oil well. They had a problem with the preacher with Paul Sunday. He had problems with his brother. He had problems with the competition. Everything was always stacked against Daniel Plainview, and he still won. And so that was just like a testament of his grit and determination and ruthlessness, but really just that iron will of I am going to win. And there is a competition in him, so much so that broken leg or death or whatever, he can always overcome. And if you notice, there's an escalation of like the conflicts that happen. First, it's a conflict with himself and nature, and then it's other people, and then right, like, and it slowly gets worse and worse and worse, and until his fake brother comes, and then that's the first time, like, right, he's been around death, but that's the first time we see him kill somebody else due to conflict, and then there's the Paul Sunday kind of finale. To Justin's point, yeah, there isn't a protagonist, but there definitely is an antagonist. There's this foil, and I think that's the kind of crux of the movie. So this is my second point. But I think that's the crux of this movie, is that you're introduced to this character, Paul Sunday, about a third of the movie in, And that is his foil. That is who he's fighting with the entire movie. And so it starts out with Paul knowing that there's oil on the Sunday ranch or whatever. And so he's extorting Daniel Plainview for more money. And I want you to build a church, and I want you to do this. And that just, anytime somebody has leverage over Daniel, it drove him nuts, and you could tell. And like, so much so where he's like, I want to bless the well. And he's like, okay. He goes, and I want you to introduce me as a son of this land. And he's like, okay, fair enough. And then what does he do? He introduces his sister as a daughter of the land, and like uses all the words that Paul had wanted him to use to describe the sister. And so like, and there's that conflict. And then his son loses his hearing, and Paul shows up and goes, you still owe me money for a church. And he beats him senseless in that like oil pond, and just like, why can't you do your hooba jooba stuff and make my son hear again? Right. And he's just so frustrated because he has no control over that aspect of his life. And it's just this constant battle with Paul Sunday until that final conflict at the end, where Paul Sunday thinks that he's got a leg up. He's destitute because the stock market crashed in 1928, 29. And he thought that radio was going to work and all this stuff. And at that point, Daniel Plainview has him over the barrel, and he's like, I want you to say you're a false prophet and God is a superstition. And he's like, well, I can't tell a lie. He goes, and then he does. He goes, so this is what I want. I want the $10,000 plus interest, plus this, plus that, plus that. And he goes, well, the oil's gone. He's like, what? He's like, no. I don't think you understand. He goes, no, I don't think you understand. The movie ends with the resolution of their conflict, because there's no more conflict. He kills Paul Sunday. So, like, I think that's the purpose of the movie, is to show this conflict and that iron will of his just destroying everything, including the life of what could be a friend. I mean, I don't think they were ever friends, but from my perspective, that's how I've interpreted it, is that the movie is about, right, the development of Daniel Plainview as this iron-willed, like, master of his trade, who will stop at nothing, including abandoning his son, abandoning his family, abandoning his friends to win. And the main foil in the whole movie is Paul Sunday, who he ends up killing, and then that ends the movie because there's no more foil. He won.
Can I just mention one thing? I love what you said there, Chase. See the relationship between Sunday and Plainview. The scene where they're in the church, and the preacher is manipulating them to get up and say the things that he's repeat, you know, and then he's standing there and he's screaming, I have abandoned my son. I have abandoned, and he's just like louder and louder, and he loses it. You know, I just thought the humiliation that he felt there, and all the rage that was built up throughout the movie and it's interesting because it's a preacher, you know what I mean? Like, there probably would have been other business enemies that he had, but everything was taken out on this preacher at the end. And I thought the performance by both characters was excellent. And to me, I did feel as though when I watched it towards the end there, I felt as though there was that in itself was some type of resolution, although not like the type of resolution where you're like, oh sweet, now I can stop thinking about this movie. This was a great movie, a great experience, where I'm sitting here and they've wrapped it up for me. That was excellent. This is the kind of movie where you're going to be thinking about possibilities of what happened in between the scenes for a while.
I was going to say the end had a nice little like revenge component to it because of that humiliation that you saw earlier. And then obviously he does the same thing to Paul Sunday at the end there. It's just that there was an audience of two, whereas, you know, he had Daniel Fairview had that audience of the entire congregation. And then you reminded me too, Plainview, not Fairview, sorry. You reminded me of, when he started smacking him around in like that oil pit, and where he said, why can't you heal my son or whatever. Again, I think that I really got the feeling that he really cared about his son right up until the end. And so I don't think that was a facade. I don't think he was using him. I don't think he was leveraging him as like a cute face to get more land. I think that was part of it. I really did think that he had feelings. But I mean, think about after he abandoned him and then his son came back, he gave him a big hug, and then his son started hitting him and he just took the hits, because I really do think that there was like this conflict in him because he really cared about his son, but he cared mostly about the oil and the riches. And I love that theme of this movie of there's like family, religion, and capitalism, greed, whatever you want to call it, like making money, and how they kind of, you know, because there's also you know, his fake brother that comes, and then he's got his fake adopted son, so there's like this familial component to it, and he can't really get a grasp on that. You almost feel like he's excited that he found his brother, but then that heightened excitement is just like equally as like matches the disappointment when he realizes, oh, he's not. And so he just keeps getting betrayed in like these ways. He gets betrayed by the religion component because he's forced to say, I abandoned my son, and then he says under his breath, I'm going to get that oil, or whatever he said. And so like religion has kind of betrayed him, and then, you know, he had to abandon his son. He couldn't keep taking care of his son and also do this oil rig, so he had to send his son off, but he couldn't, he didn't have the heart to tell his son that. It was heartbreaking, and so he had to abandon his son. So in that sense, the familial component of his life also abandoned him. But then he saw his brother, Henry, but then it wasn't his brother, so he was betrayed again. So it was almost like one tragedy after the next. The only thing that he was successful in was his oil business, and that ended up being his ruin. Like you guys were saying about the Ebenezer Scrooge story. So yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
He didn't fail because he actually raised his son correct. He got married, and like his son was going to be successful. I mean, I guess that's a send off you can think of. Like the most success he had is a son that will never talk to him again because he cut the ties right there. But
and his son was able to go and be his own oilman, right? He's like, I'm gonna go drill oil in Mexico.
Because he learned, he said, I miss the outdoors, I miss working. I did relate to that because that's how I felt like building the basement for those 3 years. But the point that I was trying to make is there's so many times in this movie where he's like, I'm gonna cut your throat. Remember the guy in the restaurant, and he's like making all these threats. There's no payoff of like 20 minutes of threats throughout this movie that never paid off. And then this grift with a preacher that just got under his craw, and it never felt like, yeah, you took all of his money and his land is worthless and you don't care about Sunday, but now you're going over the top and murdering him in your own house just because you can to an audience of one. Seems a very shallow payoff to like Count of Monte Cristo, where somebody wronged me and I have enough money, I am going to wrong you back tenfold because I have the money and the means, and I am pissed at you. I will do to you what, tenfold what you've done to me. And it was, okay, maybe he's very narcissistic. I just wanted to hear you say grovel and all that stuff. Okay, now I'll kill you. It was so, I don't know, cheap for how much it could and should have been. One opinion.
Yeah, you know what's funny too is because I kind of agree with you, Justin. Like I said before, like I felt like the movie just ended so abruptly. I was like, that's it. Like I wanted to see more. I wanted like not only to see more Daniel Day-Lewis, but some sort of stronger resolution. But you know what's funny is Callum's last movie, I felt the opposite. I was like, the whole movie was meh, and then the end was like, whoa, Snatch. You know, it was like it's funny that Callum has picked like these inverted movies where this movie was like, whoa, the entire movie, and then the end was like, oh, and the other movie, the Snatch, was like, what? This is fun. Yeah, okay, but, and then the end, whoa, like the wow factor, you know. And so it is kind of interesting in terms of analyzing Callum's taste in perfect movies when we kind of look at that dichotomy there of these movies are kind of inverted in that way.
Can I just, part of me agrees, Paul, with you on his desire to have some type of relationship with his son, with his adopted son. When he starts in these town council meetings, he'll say, I am a family man. This is a family business. This here is my son and my partner, or whatever the word was, you know, like he uses that. So this is part of what I think it is he is such a control freak. He is such a narcissist that the people who are around him, who are helping him achieve his goal and who are on board with him achieving his goal, he wants to have a relationship with them. He wants to love them. He wants them to be part of, like his son. He wants that that tie there. He thinks that'd be good for him. It'd be good for business, a family. But he uses that as a selling tactic. I'm a family man. Another on a side note, so he uses these things to sell his final goal. Like one of the questions that he was asked was, "What congregation do you belong to, or which church do you belong to?" And he's like, "I like them all." You know, he doesn't really have an answer, but he's a businessman. He was wanting to grow, so he doesn't. It's kind of like Donald Trump, where it's like he was like, I think someone asked Donald Trump, "What's your favorite book in the Bible?" And he's like, "Oh, I love all the books in the Bible." You know, because like you've never read a book in the Bible before, you know. So part of me thinks that he does want to have that, and those feelings that you see him have towards his boy throughout the movie were genuine. But as soon as he felt as though his son was now a threat rather than helping him towards his goal, it was and you got to remember, like, he has now lived a life of this intense pressure and intense, like, you can tell that he's not well, you know, he's not well. So part of the ending, I think, is due to just his severe case of rage and anger that is built up all throughout his life, that has been taken out on Mr. Sunday and taken out on his son as well, when he's like, "If you're not with me, you're against me," you know. And everything else that has been built up towards that point, all the good is for naught now. So yeah, I kind of think it just adds to his severe just like narcissism and all of that.
But see, I would push back on that, because you need to see the spiral. If I only give you like 5 or 6 points in the movie, you can't see the slow spiral of depravity, okay? And your brain is left to fill in those gaps, like you were saying. And because you know, I only have a good, not, you know, great or perfect brain, as you said, only great minds would think this is a perfect movie. I don't. So me putting stuff in the movie in between the lines, my brain just did not click. I'm like, where in the world is his foreman that was through the whole movie? Did he die of cancer? Did he have a falling out with them? It would be cool to see him like lose every single relationship that he built. And so then when he got to his son, and then he got to the preacher, well, like, he's burning all bridges and everything is on the table. You don't get these you know, A, B, C, D, like a chiasm, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then go back and then deconstruct all of those. It was just more like A, F, G, and then I'm going to give you E and Y. And you're like, well, what about all the other ones? If it was kind of like a bell curve or something where you could see him trying to do the things and it slowly whittles away his character, would have got a lot further of his total depravity at the end, where he's like, "I'm finished." He didn't have his like, Paul came to him, right? So he wasn't planning to murder him in his basement. It just kind of happened, and there was no consequences because you didn't see the end of the movie. That was the end. But like, did he get away with it with power? Is he going to prison and he didn't care? Like, there's so many questions that you can put whatever you want in. There's so much ambiguity at the end of this. Your brain can literally go almost any direction. And if they had a little bit more focus, you could see this line of depravity and go, okay, yes, because he had a falling out with his head foreman. He lost his original crew. He's all about the business now. You can see that he wasn't, doing the oil. He was going to door, and now he's perfected his craft, and he doesn't even care about oil anymore. Where's his does he care about wealth anymore? It just was so shocking to go from I'm going to drive and do all this work to I'm just in my office and sitting there and railing on his stepson that he raised the whole time and just throwing it all away for no context other than, oh yeah, he's at the depravity stage now. Well, how did he get there? He just was, because money. Well, what did he do with his money that screwed him up to get him to that point? There's so much ambiguity in between these steps. Do you see my point at least?
There was also alcohol. It wasn't just his greed. He was drinking more and more progressively throughout the movie. If you were paying attention, again, implied intelligence. By the end, he is just drunk out of his mind, and he's being like a rageful drunk. But you're right, Justin. There's a lot of reading in between the lines, and there are a couple lines I'd like you to read between these ones, buddy. Read between the lines, Justin. I say we go for a vote. What do you guys say? We down?
Just on Justin's thing, like, he mentioned it multiple times about how he hated people.
Yes.
And I think that's what it is that you just see him hate more and more. And the more powerful he became, the less he had to care about people. To the point where he had gotten to a point where even his own son, he could pretend he didn't need to care about. And then he had mentioned also, like, he hated when people used him. And that's what Paul Sunday came to do, was to use the relationship that he had to bail him out. And he hated that. Not only did he hate people, he also hated when people used him. And that was the culmination of those hatreds. That pinnacle point of Daniel Plainview's hatred was somebody coming who he's hated since the beginning, a person, and then that person coming to use him. And I think that's what threw him into a fit of rage that he killed him, was because he was trying to, like, you could tell he was trying to manipulate him. And I think that's just what threw it over the top. And he's like, you are a sick bastard, and I'm going to kill you because you are trying, like, I hate you, and you're doing the one thing I hate most, and you deserve to die. Right. Whether or not he did. But anyways, so, like, for me, like, that's how I looked at that movie, is you just see Daniel hating everybody more and more. And the more powerful and the more wealthy he became, the less he had to care about anybody else, so that he could kill somebody, and it didn't matter.
I definitely want to say this because I've only done the trashing part, but I've agreed with a lot of, like, cinematography, great, acting, superb, right? I think it was the story room and or maybe the editing, or they're because they got to get it down to 250 or 2.5 hours, almost 3, somewhere in there. Maybe they trimmed a lot of the stuff that I was looking for in between to trim it down, and then like, you'll figure it out. But I don't think that this was like the worst movie I've ever seen. But as far as perfection goes, that's why I'm picking it apart. Does that make sense? Like, the acting was great, and most of the stuff that you're saying, I agree with. It's just I'm missing some key pieces in my brain that I filled in, and maybe it's the I'm not spoiling anything here. Sphere, right? The movie Sphere. The only thing deadly was the 3 people that were left. Their brains were causing all the fear, and unfortunately, my brain filling in the gaps just hated this movie. So maybe I hate myself. Thank you, Callum. I hate myself and hate all of you. Thanks for playing.
All right, so I think we got Justin's vote. I hate to put words in your mouth, but can you just confirm for the audience?
Yeah, not a perfect movie because I am not a perfect person.
Hey, I'm going to do a quick rug pull here. I'm voting no as well. I think Daniel Day-Lewis had a perfect performance, but I don't think that the movie was perfect for a lot of the reasons that Justin and I said. I needed a stronger conclusion. I needed a stronger story. I needed a more compelling story. Like, what was interesting is, who would think to do a movie about oil drilling? Like, that's kind of, and since then they've done like TV shows like Landman and stuff. I get it. It is compelling, but It was just like, it was interesting. Like what I was fascinated with was the characters revolving around the story. The story itself didn't really do much for me. And I know that it had to be that way because it's about greed and capitalism and the destruction of the soul of a man when he gets so caught up in that world. But for me, it just didn't have that wow factor that I'm always looking for. His performance had the wow factor, but he carried that movie. If take Daniel Day-Lewis out or replace him with a different character, and that movie is mid at best. He was so freaking good in that movie. I can't give the stamp of approval because I think he was the only thing that was perfect about that movie, personally. Chase.
Well, I'm going to be the contrarian then. I think it was a perfect movie. And I think I've articulated a lot of the points of why I do. And while, yes, there are some downsides, and I do agree with some of the negatives, for me, I feel like this has hit that like 90% threshold where I would give it a perfect movie score. So in this cohort, we're 50-50.
We'll get votes from the other boys. Callum, any final thoughts before?
Yeah, just to criticize you, Bo. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle, okay? And if this movie didn't have Daniel Day-Lewis, then yeah, it might not be a perfect movie. But it did have Daniel Day-Lewis, you know what I'm saying? Okay, it did have it, okay?
Oh man, that's a really good point. I feel like I told an Alan, I'm like, if this movie was different, it wouldn't be perfect. Yeah. If
this had a Scottish actor and portraying an inaccurate lore of King Arthur, then you would have won another 25% of this audience.
Yeah.
I will say that in this conversation, I feel as though there are things in the movie men's category for perfect movie that we have not even touched on, because this movie blows it out the park with. And I think so there's certain scenes where the movie just lingers because it is so just like it's art, it's beautiful, it's amazing, you know, and you just got to appreciate it. That again, as you said, Bo, this is about an oil field and this guy's journey, and to be able to create those moments of beauty and art in a movie about oil is that in itself is a risk. There is no like let's just do a cookie cutter type of movie that's going to put bums on seats and people are just going to like regardless. It had risks, it had art, it had beauty. And that is really what a movie is, a film is. It is a piece of art. And I think that this knocked it out of the park. So perfect movie for me.
Yeah, 8 out of 10 for me. As we always say, I mean, these movies are all so freaking good. Like I'm not saying that the movie, you heard my whole dialogue at the beginning. But you know, we got to be strict. And I feel like, I don't know. I've been doing some introspection after the past couple conversations. I'm like, I need to get back to my rigidity. I need to keep these things gold standard, baby. Like nothing but the best. And this one was just a little bit flat. Listen, the story was just a little bit. Daniel Day-Lewis was, but the story was like. So I have to. I'm sorry. I have to downvote. But that makes it more interesting because this group here is tied. We'll see what the other boys have to say, and then I'll get Zane to send us a Marco Polo on what the next movie will be, and we'll go from there. Sound good? All right. Thanks again for joining, guys. Love you, brother. See you next time.
Cheers, guys. Good night.